Rainy day alert. Let's talk about flat tips versus reversa tips. What's the difference? And why I use flat tips instead of reversa. There's a lot of myths and mysteries, and guys go, oh, hey, I don't like to get plug ups, so I use a reversa tip. You know, I paint all day long, and so many days that I paint all day, the whole day long, I don't even get one plug up using a flat tip. And I've watched guys use these reversa tips, and constantly the whole day long they get a plug up and they're switching this thing back and forth, and they go, oh, these work better, they save me time, because I don't have to go to my spray rig and take my filter or housing off, flip my, and how you clean these out. Let's say you got a plug tip. It happens every once in a while. I'd say one day, almost once a day, I'll get a plug up on average. And if I get more than one, usually it's because this filter is bad. But anyway, you flip it upside down like this, take it off, and you put this back on. Spray it into your, there's a little bit of pressure in the line still. You spray that into your bucket, okay, backwards. Tips cleaned out with the paint in it or whatever. You don't have to use water. You don't have to clean it out with water. You can just use paint. Flip it over, put it back in. All right. And let's take a look at what a flat tip looks like. This is what the tip looks like. It's got the number on it. This one's a, what am I got here? 515. I can't really read it. 515. Yeah, I can see. So you guys can see it too. So got a 515. Put it back in. Here. Shove that in there with my finger. It's a lot easier to do off camera. Okay. Make sure my filter is clean. Put this back on. And I'll use a medium filter. They have a fine, extra fine, they have a medium, and they have a coarse. I almost never use the coarse one. You'll get plug ups if you use that one. So, and why do people buy these and they flip this thing back, okay, and that spray it into a bucket, cleans it out, or spray it on the wall? I've seen guys do that. I don't really like that, but they spray a big fatty on the wall somewhere, and then they flip it around, and then they keep painting, right? Because it cleans it out in seconds. Okay, why do the paint stores and why does everybody have these now when they used to have these? This little spray tip right here, when everybody used to use these, this little spray tip costs $5. Some places $6. There's a place online that sells them for $4. I usually just buy them, racks of them, by $4, and I just have a ton of them all the time, and I don't replace them unless they're bad. I don't just replace them every time it plugs up. That's what morons do, not me. I'll replace it when it's bad, take it off, flip it over, clean it out once, and when it gets to the point where the fan's no longer, so if it's a 515, the fan's supposed to be 10 inches tall, and it's supposed to be, a 15 thousandths opening, so it should be a nice narrow fan like this. If your fan's really fat, your tip's blown out, time to throw it away. All right. Well, sometimes you keep those. You want a little bit, sometimes some jobs, you want a little bit more blown out tip. You'll start learning this stuff as you go. So you go, hey man, this tip's kind of blown out. I'll put it in a little extra area in your tip box, and you'll save that one for something when you need it. You'll find products that you know how to use it on. But I can't really go into all the details of that in one video. So, why are guys buying this? I'm going to tell you why. This company right here, Graco, the other one that makes these, make a ton of money selling you these for 30 bucks a piece. All right? These are like 30 bucks. And what guys do is they go, oh, well, they last longer. You know what? The same amount of time that this tip lasts, This one, your $30 tip needs to be thrown in the trash too, because when it gets blown out and it's a 515 and it's spraying a fan this wide, it's supposed to spray 12 inches wide, and 5 is supposed to be 10 inches tall. So you double the number. 5 is a 10-inch fan, and then it's 15 or this is 17. 17 is 17 thousandths hole. Okay, and it should be spraying, about that much width, depending on the material. Every material is a little different. Some of the cheap production materials are splattery. A 515 will spray like a 5-inch fan, and a real flat, fat, splattery tip, I won't use that material. So these are things you get to know over time. So why is everybody buying these? Because they have sold you a bill of goods that you need this, okay? And that you need to spend $30 every time that your tip wears out. And a lot of guys are using these things and using for years and years the same tip, putting 300, 400, 500 gallons through one tip. That tip's wasted. You're blowing extra material on the wall. You're wasting material. You're wasting your money buying these things. And on top of that, they get more overspray. So let's talk about that now. The reason why I use it is not for money. It's not for money. I don't use these because of money. I use these. If these were more expensive and they did a better job, I would use these still. Okay. But these things do a lot of things not too great. So your fan. Let's get something to draw this. So they all the time when you're setting your pressure on your rig, pressure is the key thing to getting less overspray, to doing a better job. If you're over pressurizing, you're going to end up with problems. You end up with fat edges when you trigger. People say, oh yeah, I've got what's the problem they call it? Lap marks. I've got lap marks in my wall. Okay, and so I do this or whatever, whip my gun and all this crazy stuff to try and compensate for them not setting their pressure correctly. So you end up with a lot of those problems from running your pressure too high and overspray as well. But when you do a spray pattern on the wall, let's say to have a piece of paper and you want to do a test pattern. So your spray pattern looks like this, right? You spray it. I'm just doing a small one for this. But on the very edges of your fan, you have a little thing here. There's like a little, I call these fan edges. Okay, if you spray a pattern and you got your pressure too low, you're gonna have it like this. It's gonna be like this. That's gonna be on the wall, thick, heavy, light, heavy, light, heavy, light. It's gonna be like fingers. Okay, that means your pressure is too low. So what guys do is they call these fan edges a finger, and they turn their pressure up to try and blow that out so that those things don't come. You're almost turning your pressure up all the way to blow those out with this tip. If you're trying to blow those all the way out, your pressure's too high if you have a brand new tip. Now this is what I'm getting to talk about, is when you haven't, sometimes you want a little bit of a blown out tip sometimes. Because as your tip gets worn, these things kind of go to the point where they go away with less pressure. So sometimes when you get a brand new tip, it has these fan edges, okay, and you're painting, let's say, a little bit of a sheen, you're doing a ceiling, you're going to see that maybe when you spray that ceiling, even with these fan edges. So that's when you're going to want to get your older tip and use it. All right. What guys try and do though is they turn their pressure up too high. You end up with a heavier fan edge with this than with this. Okay. With this, you end up with less of a fan edge. And as you go through about a gallon or two or 3 or 4 gallons, something like that in paint, this tip blows out enough to where those things diminish almost to nothing. And most of the time, they don't even show. You just got to get to the point where you know when those are going to show, when they're not. Most of the time, they won't. if you're using a flat tip. But if you're using one of these, most of the time they will show up, unless you're doing like a rough stucco. If you're doing an interior wall or something like that, you're probably going to have issues with fan edges. So you have to turn your pressure up too high. So the problems that you create by using this reversa tip and making this company right here, whoever it is, this one happens to be a Graco, making them rich, okay, at the same time, is a problem for you as a painter. For me, I've learned this stuff. I've been doing this many, many years. Some of the guys, one of the guys I used to work for made about $4 million a year with a 20-man crew. All right. Tell me anybody else who's done that. All right. And this was in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And that's a way more money than that's talking about. They'd be making $20 million a year now with today's prices. And it was so funny when we were on jobs. He was a regular guy. He wore Levi's. He never wore paint clothes. He wore Levi's, and he never had paint on his clothes hardly ever. And he wore flannel shirts on the job. And people would just look at him like he was an idiot. And they had no idea how much money he had. He had so much money. He's dead now. He passed away in, I think, 2015. And he was a millionaire from painting. And people used to tell him how to do this stuff. I learned all this. I learned a lot of stuff from him. And I learned from other guys that worked with him for years. And I'm telling you, this is the key thing. A lot of this stuff here, this new technology that they're selling you, is garbage. In my opinion, I've got this brand new one. It's the only one I have. Does it look like I've ever used that? Does you think I ever will? I think I got it for free at some paint show or something. And I probably will never use it. But that's the difference between a flat tip, reversa tip, why I use the reversa tip over, the flat tip over the reversa. It's because they're just better. Okay, I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Hope that helps you, and I hope that gives you some clarification on what I'm doing. I'll talk to you in the next one. Please like, share, and subscribe.